Welcome to One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers, where we get curious about what makes us tick. We're here today with a man who's set to carry a motorsport dynasty. Welcome, Bradley Gravett.
Ian, thank you for having me. Finally, we're here.
Absolutely.
Mega.
And with the car.
Absolutely, with all the bits and bobs on it too. I think it looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Which I hope you can see in the background there.
Yeah, no, fantastic. It's brilliant. I know we've been talking on and off for a while now, but it's just so great to actually have the time to have the conversation now.
Of course.
Well, go on. Let's kick it off.
Sure.
With tell us what you do.
Well,
I guess the
if you
hints in
can't,
the background.
obviously, for those of you that aren't watching it, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm a racing driver, so I race in the Mini Challenge JCW series. We've just gone public on that for 2022. So in 2021, this is what I drove. This fabulous Mini behind me here, I'm a British racing driver, and I'm planning to compete in the series again this year. Very exciting.
Right. So I think what would be really interesting is to how did you get here?
Yeah, that's a very long story. So for those of you who don't know, my father was a professional racing driver for his entire career. Throughout my entire life, I spent growing up around motorsport. Lots of drivers, lots of cars, lots of circuits. I mean, he was international, so he went all over the planet. So for me, motorsport's genuinely in my blood. From the day I was born until now. In fact, he retired in the late 90s, but he's continued to do a few bits and bobs. So I've been around it my entire life. And I kind of always wanted to do it. I know you always a lot of people think that I was sort of pushed towards it, but I thought, that's cool. I want to do that. I really want to do that. And we've just chipped away at it, and eventually we've managed to make it happen.
So what's an earliest memory that you've probably got of something to do with motorsport?
Oh, it's all coming back now. So the earliest memory, I think of memories, I look at pictures, and I sometimes wonder, do I really remember that, or do I remember the picture? I don't know if it actually, you look at the picture and think, do I remember being there or not? I don't know. My earliest memory, I remember sat on the start line at Silverstone at 1998, so I would have been 5 years old, and I'll just give my age away there, haven't I? And I remember Dad was in a different car. I don't know what happened to his car, but he was racing in a Honda, an independent. He actually won the series that year, and we were sat on the start line, and I was like, where's Dad's car? Because it was a different car, and I remember that's my earliest memory of motorsport. I'm sure there were probably some before that as well, but that's the one I can actually think, that was 98, sorry, and that was what we were doing then. So then, Silverstone start line, which is Dad's car. Fantastic. I don't think it was a particularly quick car because he wasn't that side, he was over there somewhere. So,
I mean, we opened up talking about a motorsport dynasty as well, and obviously, your dad was very successful as well. Just tell me a bit about does that bring any pressure?
Yeah, so it goes two ways. So obviously he was, well, not obviously if you don't know, but my father was fortunate enough to win the British Touring Car Championships not once but twice. So he won it in 1990 originally in an old Ford Sierra RS500. A lot of people would say that is the golden era of touring cars. Yeah. They were all mighty cars, 600 and odd horsepower, rear wheel drive, absolutely no stability at all, far too much power, not enough grip, and you had to be pretty confident to be quick in that car. Yeah. And he worked incredibly difficult. He went up against all the big boys, all the big teams, all the manufacturer-backed teams, and he managed to go out there as an independent at the time, find the budget, and go out and win. And throughout his entire career, that's what he had to do. So he had to go out and raise the budget. He's driven for various manufacturers throughout his career. And he was very successful. So there's a huge amount of pressure on my shoulders. But equally, you could argue, I mean, obviously, that I've been working incredibly hard behind the scenes to make this happen, as you full well know, Ian. But equally, there is an expectation there because of how successful he was. But of course, like with anything, you need to practice, you need time. And I have had limited time around motorsport, so I need the time in the seat. I need to learn stuff. I need to do things. Yeah. So yes, it opens doors, and absolutely, I've leveraged that to open all of the doors that I can, to which I've then, managed to get myself into a seat. But equally, there is an added pressure to that. People are watching, and it's important that I'm quick. That's what I want to do. That's what I will do. And it's what it's all about. But it's tough. It is hard. But
I think the thing I find interesting about this as well is, I mean, obviously you were around it for as long as you can remember, but the early desire, the fact that you wanted to do this from a
young age.
Yeah.
So 13 years old, I don't quite know what happened. I started saying to Dad, I want to go racing. I don't know where it came from, but I just said, I want to go racing. I want to go racing. I want to go racing. It was once a day I was saying it, maybe every other day. Then it was once. Then it became once a day. Then it was twice. Then it was like 100 times a day. And eventually, he snapped. He said, "Fine, that's it. We'll have a test in the go-kart." To which we did, and that's kind of where it all started. So 2007, that was. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to drive for the late great Martin Hines, who was a world superkart champion, and those karts are insane. They are, you've seen them, the karts with the big wings on the back, gearbox karts. I don't know, I want to make a number out, 150 miles an hour. They use proper circuits. He won that, and he was the owner at the time of Zipkart. So I was fortunate enough to drive for the factory Zipkart Young Guns team in 2007. We did 2 back-to-back championships. To which I was learning, and I was dropped right in with some serious names. I mean, some of the top BTCC drivers of today, even Formula One, were in the same championship as me at that time. So it's very difficult to just be thrown in the deep end there. So we did that year. We learned a lot, and then we pulled away from Zipkart, and then we went over to another engine manufacturer. So karting's all kind of about engines and different classes and chassis and sizes. It's quite complicated. So we moved from one class to another at that time. It was called KF3. We then went for an independent team on a Tony Kart chassis. Same thing, learning, started getting quick towards the end of the season, creeping up towards the end of 2007, start of 2008, credit crunch. That was it for, well, until recently.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, and go-karting, I mean, you're really close to the ground as well, aren't you?
Oh, I mean, you don't think of it as a kid. I mean, I look back now, so I was 13, 14 at the time. I mean, you are literally inches from the ground, but you don't think about that. You don't think about the risks ever, because you wouldn't do it otherwise.
And the same, I suppose, goes now as well, doesn't it?
It does to a degree, yeah. I mean, as you get older, you become more aware of things hurt a lot more,
Yeah.
So you don't want to hit anything or hit anyone, and of course, when it's actually quite expensive to do that as well. So you kind of want to avoid that. But at the same time, if you don't have that, that push, that desire, that want, you got to really want to, carry speed into corners. You've got to really, let the car move around and do things underneath you. And if you don't do that, it's difficult to be quick. So you do have to compartmentalize that slightly.
Yeah.
As much as possible, really. And not crazy, that's not the right word, but you've got to be, calculated with it, but equally, you still got to remain in control.
Yeah. It's calculated risk-taking, but you don't have much decision time, do you?
Not really, no. I mean, it looks a little bit quicker than it does from inside the car. You pretty much know, you get into a rhythm with it, so you know that's where you're going to brake, that's where you're going to turn, that's where you're going to accelerate. So after a number of laps, you get used to that, and it becomes, you sort of start to not have to think about it. And then it gives your mind a chance to think about other things happening around you, because not only have you got to do your steering, your braking, your throttle, the same, push the boundaries of the car, push the boundaries of the tyres. The race develops or the sessions develop, the tyres get hotter, they go off, they lose grip, The car becomes lighter. You have cars around you that you need to control, but equally at the same time not overheating tyres and things like that. So you need that mental capacity. So once you get past that initial, I don't want to crash phase, you can start thinking about these other things, and it starts opening up your capacity. Yeah.
So when you get to the track, and
bacon sandwich.
Is that a routine? Is that?
No, it's not. It's just something that we do. I need to really focus on my diet. Yeah, no, I don't eat bacon sandwiches. It's just tradition, really. A little bit of tradition there.
So I was thinking about. So you, I sat in the car earlier on today, and if you're someone who's never sat in a car like this, you realise how much you very much wear the car, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
You get, it's not like a. I'm going down the shops and you jump in, you're wearing the car. So you've got in, and there's quite a process to get yourself in the car and get.
So lots of people,
up.
so I've spoken about this before, and what lots of people at this stage in their motorsport career don't remember is that actually the position that you sit in the car, it's very aggressive. You're so low. Your eye line is here. You can't see the bonnet. You can't see any of the bonnet. You can't move your head around, and that takes a bit of time getting used to.
I was quite surprised at that earlier on today when I actually sat in the car. I've driven minis. We've got a mini now, and you're used to seeing everything. Of course, but it really is obscured, isn't it?
It completely is. And then, of course, what you've got to remember then is you've then got this limited vision from your crash helmet. You can't hear very well because you've got your ear defenders in, and it's really loud in there. Yeah. I mean, I'm beyond that now, but initially it's a huge step. I don't get nervous at all when I get in this race car. I didn't really get it before, but there was always that, I can't really see over there, and I can't really see over there. You always kind of like want to bring the seat up, look over it, but you can't do that, so you just got to crack on. But equally, you've got to feel, if you're not comfortable in your seating position, you've got to get hold of a car. So when you're, if it goes wrong at 100 mile an hour, you've got to pick it up immediately. And if you don't, you can, be in a wall, and it's really important to not do that.
Not be in a wall,
we just spoke about. Yeah.
So you're in the car then. You've got in. What's going through your mind?
So first thing I'm thinking about is safety. First thing I think about before I get in a race car is the safety, and it's the cliche, but it's true. suits. I've got to make sure the suit's done up. I've got to go through that process first. I need to clear the list down and get through that process of balaclavas in, helmets on, it's done up tight, hands is on, strapped in, check the hands, is it working? Are the belts over the hands to protect the neck? Is everything right? Good, I'm in. Then it's warm the tyres up. So it is safety for quite a long period of time, and depending on the circuit that you're at, it can take 2 laps, it can take 5 laps to warm tyres up, depending on how long they are. These cars are notoriously very oversteery, so you'll tend to find that on the first couple of laps you get a lot of the rear moving around, and you've got to let it move. So you've got to let that happen. It's a horrible feeling. You get used to it in time, but you've got to let it move around. You've got to let the temperature build up in those tyres, because when it does, you'll have grip. And if you don't let it do it, you'll have no grip. No grip. It's literally like that. It's slick tyres when they're cold. I like driving with a ball tyre on ice. That's what it's like, in the dry. And of course, if the ambient temperature is, they work it, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I believe they work at around 85 degrees at that region. So if the ambient temperature is 30 degrees, you're already at 30 degrees. So in the summer, they're already semi-switched on.
Yeah.
If you're looking at 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees, they're at 10 degrees, that's 20 degrees less. That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
So you'll get in the car in a colder session earlier in the morning and you'll have no grip. So these are all the things that you've got to think about. Once the tyres are up to temperature, you're leaning on them and making sure they're there and it's all good and everything, you're happy with everything, you then start pushing those boundaries. So then you start braking later, picking up the throttle soon, and turning in later, carrying more speed in. And you're just building those up, looking at your lap time. Is it working, is it not? And you just take it from there, really.
So you, as well as warming yourself up, you're kind of, the U-car combination has to warm up together to get it.
It does, absolutely.
Race ready.
I mean, and as a human as well, I mean, it's lots of people don't realise, but it's incredibly debilitating on the body and the mind, actually. The car, I mean, I am more tired after a race weekend, and okay, it's difficult, it's hard, it's not the same as I could go and run half a marathon and be absolutely fine at the end of it.
Yeah.
I'll do 2 sessions in a race car and I need to go to bed at 7 o'clock. I'm knackered. There's so much mental capacity there that you have to cater for, and you have to be incredibly fit to drive these cars. There's so much, I train 5 days a week. I have done for years, and and the reason, and I realised this, I had a moment last year, and I was strong enough to pick it up quickly enough, and if I hadn't been strong enough, I believe that I wouldn't have been quick enough, and the steering's heavy and they're uncomfortable and they bounce and it's hard on your neck, and you've got your helmet on that's heavy, you've got lots of parameters there that you've got to work with, and of course you're forgetting you're doing it in a ski suit.
Of course.
So the car's an oven. You're wearing long johns.
Yeah.
All across your body. You've got balaclava on. Then you've got a several layer race suit over the top of that. You're strapped into a seat which is all cushioned. It's hot.
Yeah.
So I come out and I feel like I've had a shower. Makes my hair look terrible.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's and as a spectator, you see the colourful car whipping around a circuit. You don't get any of that.
Well, it's a show, really, motorsport. I mean, it's a show for the spectators, for the telly. It is, and I think lots of teams and drivers lose sight of that sometimes. It's not actually about us. It's not about any of that. What it's about, it's about a show for the people. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I'm the front man. But if I always like to use the sort of, it's like a rock band analogy. You've got the lead singer. Everyone knows the lead singer, but it wouldn't happen without the drummer, without the bass guitarist, without all the other people. I'm not a music man, so I don't know who everyone else is. Yeah. But I know for these big guys, these big guys and girls, these musicians, there's hundreds of people behind the scenes making it happen, and it's exactly the same in motorsport.
Yep.
There's so much going on behind the scenes. It's crazy.
I remember when we first got in contact, and I'd seen you at Donington, and I remember the thing that stuck with me there was the fact that you mentioned it's about the audience, the crowd, and that you took time out around the middle of the day to go and
it's so important,
sign autographs,
it's so important because for lots of different reasons, but as I said earlier, I can't stress enough, it is about those people. They're spending money to come and watch you. They want to come and see you. I've also I'm a little bit in a unique situation because of what Dad achieved in his career over a 25-year period or whatever it was in motorsport. So lots of people, they want to see him, they want to see me, I'm his son. There's quite a lot of interest there. So I think it's just important that I give as much back as I take from it. I enjoy it. I like it. I like it. It's nice. It makes people stay. It's nice. Make the effort, and not everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
So.
And you can tell. I mean, you use it. The time that we spent together. I mean, you showed me your racing simulator. Which was great fun to have a go at. By the way, I appreciate that. That was great fun. But yeah, that whole thing. It's good to get an insight about what is happening behind the visor.
Of course.
So let me now move the race on. So you're in the car.
Yep.
You've warmed up. It's all ready. Your tyres are where you want them to be. you're sweating buckets but comfortable. You're on the grid now.
Of course.
What's going through your mind?
I'm thinking, what's for dinner? No, that's not true. Some of it's true. No, it's not really true. No, so on the grids, I'm sat there. I'm in first gear. I'm in the box. That's crucial. Hold the handbrakes in first gear, foot on the clutch, and I'm just sitting there revving it.
Yeah.
Revving it, picking it up. I'm looking at the lights. They'll come on as soon as they go off. Just.
And what do you think? So, because I mean, all of that stuff, I'm sure by this time, I mean that's all second nature that you're doing.
It is now, yeah.
So what are you thinking about when you
how many cars I can drive past until I get to the first corner? Simple as that. Yeah.
Right.
As I've grown to know the championship and know the other drivers around me, I'm also thinking he or she might try this. So I need to be a little bit cautious of that because I know they've got a bit of form and I've seen it before. So you do learn about the other people around you, but primarily, if you don't qualify right at the front, most of the positions in this series, being a one-make series, is that it's made up on the first couple of laps, really.
Right.
So I'm thinking about trying to get past as many people as possible, but at the same time knowing that because it's a one-make series, people are going to try and be heroes on cold tyres, and still one lap on most circuits isn't enough to put temperature in the tyres, mainly the rear tyres. So you tend to find that you get one or two people spit off. Right. Who run out of talent.
I know. I've watching some of it last year and watching some of the Mini Cooper as well, and you get the sense that someone is thinking, "I'm just going for that corner," and you look at it and you think, "I don't think they're going to get around that."
Yeah, that is actually quite an issue you get with one make series, not just the Mini Challenge. You get it with all of them. Is that you do get heroes, and it's even if it's not your fault, it's your fault if it ends your race. So these are all things that you learn. That's known as racecraft. So you just have to learn that, and that's always developing as new drivers come in. That things will change, but fundamentally, people want to overtake on the inside. That's where they're going to go. So you move your car over and you try and minimise that risk to you as much as possible.
So a thing I'm interested in here, thinking about racecraft and thinking about yourself and your dad as well. Do you listen?
Do I listen?
So obviously, when you were early in your race career, were you able to get almost like a head start on racecraft, or was it something very much that you
so
worked on?
I'm very fortunate to have a multiple British touring car champion as a father, and yes, I did listen. This is the honest answer to your question. I did because he knows more than I do. Simple as that. Because he's been doing it longer. Now I've got a little bit of experience. There's now things that I'm starting to learn myself and develop on. Where I think, actually, I don't need to ask that question now because I know that question, or I can maybe work around that problem, or maybe I could make a setup change to the car that might improve it without necessarily running that past Dad. He's very, very good at setups on cars. He's incredibly good. Unfortunately, he hasn't had the opportunity to actually get behind the wheel of this car. So not necessarily, he might not know what's best for this particular car, but fundamentally and dynamically, cars behave in the same manner. They just want to go straight. And when you turn a corner, something might happen that might prevent that. It might be too soft. It might be too stiff. It might be various things that are happening underneath you. That are preventing you from doing what you need to do. And as a relatively new driver to this level of motorsport, sometimes it can be difficult to understand or differentiate the difference between, is it me or is it something with the car? And I always like to point the finger at me because I don't like to blame the engineers or the team because they just work, they know what they're doing, they work so hard to get everything right. So I think, well, it must be something I'm doing because that bit must be right. But sometimes there's a bit of toing and froing, things need to change, and that's why you test. So change this thing here and it will do that, and then I'll change a bit of my driving, and then you work together and you push forward together. So yes, Dad's input is very, very valuable for sure, 100% for you.
And there's another dynamic at play here, isn't there? Because you think, well, surely if your tyres are wearing down, we'll just change the tyres. But there's a limit here, isn't there?
It's not. It's a limit in everything. So even at top level motorsport, even at Formula One, they're limited to tyres, albeit they've got a lot more tyres than we do. So. Last year, depending on the round, we either got 4 or 6 new tyres. Now, that's tyres, not sets, tyres. 4 tyres, 4 strings of rubber, like what we're sitting on here, if you can see them in the shot, and if you're not, you should be watching it. And if you lost a tyre because of a flat spot, or it popped off the rim, or you were too aggressive with it, or you cold scored it if you pushed it too hard when it was cold, you lose that tyre. And if you lose that tyre, you immediately become at a disadvantage. And then the other problem that you've got is every lap you do on a tyre, you're wearing that tyre down. So, yes, I need the experience in the car, I need to learn the circuit, but actually, I can't afford to wear my tyres down because I'm at such a disadvantage. So if you come to race through on a weekend when everyone's got old tyres and you give me 4 new tyres, I'll be at the front. Simple as that. Because it is such an advantage. A new tyre is... You put a new set of tyres on for qualifying. You've probably got. We use Brands Hatch Indy as an example. You've probably got lap and a half to warm them up. You probably go on lap 3. By lap 5, they're done. They're getting slower and slower and slower and slower and slower. So you've got to set your time in that period.
And that's where, being careful, using your analogy of the ball bearings in the box,
Exactly.
that has a massive bearing on how you actually wear your tyres evenly as well.
It is, yeah, it is. It's how you warm them up. It's vital to get that right.
And it almost feels like I think, well, if I was going to do that, I kind of want someone sat in the seat next to me working this out while I'm going around, but you're doing that as well as driving and doing all the other stuff. So what we've covered so far, the fascinating story, and obviously, as you've said, for people to do it, pick up the phone. If you want to do it, do it. I just want to change tack a bit now.
Sure.
I know that we've been working together for some time now, talking about mindset and how that applies in this arena. So I just want to sort of take us down that avenue a little bit. And I know one thing that we started talking about was different race circuits have different things that come to mind, and different features for different race circuits. So why you just want to elaborate on what we've been talking about there?
We worked obviously very closely together in the past couple of months now, isn't it, I think? And I think I said something to you which really resonated. We were talking about Thruxton, and we were talking about Church. And Church is a very, very fast corner. It's flat out in most things, or if not, it's very close to. And I described it to you as scary corner, to which you then immediately, I'll let you take over from here, Ian.
Yeah, I picked up because, knowing what we do, I straight on that scary corner. Because in my mind, if you think something's scary, subliminally, your body's going to do something there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, which is why I love the way that you talk about it now.
Absolutely, because as we discussed, I've preconditioned myself to believe that that's a scary corner. So when I'm coming up to Church, I'm thinking, scary corner.
And now it's what corner?
Great corner, fast corner, exhilarating corner.
Yeah, come on.
Above.
Yeah.
Send it corner. Fix it afterwards.
So it's interesting. We talked a little bit earlier about, what's going through your mind when you're on the grid. So thinking about some of the stuff we've been working on now, when you are now thinking about a race circuit and you are thinking about certain features, what kind of thought process, what is going through your mind now? What are you trying out or doing that you maybe weren't doing before?
I think the key thing here is I wasn't really thinking that much about it, really, to be honest with you, and it was all subliminal. So I'm turning up to a race circuit. I'm obviously thinking, I'm practicing on the simulator.
Yeah.
I'm going through footage, but I'm not really thinking about corners as such and what they are. But when I get in the car and I actually strip it back, after the season, whatever, and actually I think, yeah, okay. I was thinking that I better not turn in early, because if I do, then I'll miss the apex and potentially run wide on the exit. And I was thinking those things, which actually, when I look back, it probably was slowing me up slightly. Whereas now, I'm able to identify those things and strip it all back and think, actually, no, don't think like that. Think, turn in late corner.
Yeah.
Brake late corner, or whatever, change it.
There's a YouTube video which I just mentioned to you earlier on, and there's been a world record setting electric flight.
Yes.
It's on YouTube. It's I think it's Rolls-Royce. It's a Rolls-Royce aircraft, and I don't know whether they've done the motor as well. But the thing that really drew me into that, and it's along the lines of the conversation that we've had, is the test pilot was not in the plane, but he was stood by the side of the plane.
Yes.
And he was...
I know where you're going with this as well.
He was mimicking.
Yeah.
So you do this.
We do the same thing. Yeah. I mean, I certainly do it all the time. I mean, so this year, I hadn't had a great deal of experience on most of the circuits, but now I do. I'm actually able to drive most of the circuits in my head. I know where the bumps are. I know what that feels like to brake there. I know what that turn in feels like, and I know what it feels like. And yeah, before, one of the things that I like to do now in my head is actually run myself through that lap. That's where I change gear. What's my reference point at that time? That's what happens. That's when and yeah, you do think it through in your head.
Yeah.
So I totally resonate with what that pilot did. Yeah. He's probably slightly frightened though. First electric. How far did he? Was it a long way, wasn't it?
I think they did a 5, a 10, and a 15-kilometre flight.
Incredible.
I think. And the other thing, which I guess is different now than if you'd have gone 20 years ago in this, is that you have the opportunity to practice on simulators.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, they're incredible. I was very anti-simulators for a long time, and I've never been very good at video games, so I've never been that delicate with things or whatever I happened to be playing at the time all the way through. For me, it was just key smashing and whatever, and whatever you did. But and I think I looked at the simulator a little bit like a video game. I mean, it is a video game. They all are on simulators, which are in essence video games, but they are serious bits of kit. You know, you've got the pedals, all the brake pressure's correct. You've got the you know, all the settings on the car should feel like the race car. So I do a lot of time now in the simulator. It's taken me quite a while to get used to it because there is a lack of there is no lateral movement in the body, so you don't feel those things. But having driven the real car and applying it to the simulator, I can now think, right, I know what it's doing. Like take the Crane of Curves, for example, at Donington. I know what that feels like. I know it goes a little bit light at the bottom, and I know it does that, and I know I've got to get it back, and I know what that feels like, and I know I've got to get the nose in and over the curve, and I know how that feels when you get that wrong. And all these little things that you...
You know the thing that's brilliant, and I've got to say, because people who are listening to this as an audio podcast won't see what I'm seeing now.
Oh, I'm floating around like crazy.
But Bradley's actually driving the car in front of me. You're actually moving your body, and that's fascinating because that's actually what we're programming this, aren't we?
We are.
And it's that rehearsal, mental rehearsal.
Going back to the mindset side of things, I think you can program that wrong.
Yes.
You can program that. So that's a bit of oversteer there. That's great. Let it move around. Let it happen. Because if you don't, it's not quick enough.
Yeah.
They will move.
Yeah.
They have to move to be fast.
And that's the fascinating stuff that I know we've been messing around with and continue to mess around with as well. Yeah.
Good fun.
So, what does success look like for you?
So as I said in the first part, it's for me right now. I'm learning quite a lot. So I'm taking as much as I can out of the small wins in motorsport. So, you know, getting the fastest sector, which I did at the last round on the Brands GP circuit, and all these little things, getting that apex right, getting the braking point right, consistency, getting within, you know, a number of tenths of a lap time, you know, bringing those lap times down and down and down and down, because I am still learning. Well, last year I was still learning. Next year will be a very, very different year. The dynamic will be very different. But not only am I learning, we're learning as a team. So we're learning as how what the car does when you change a setting and how that feels differently and what feedback I give. And we're all learning together. So we're all taking success, not necessarily trophies last year, but just development in me as a driver. And as a team, more crucially as a team actually, because if the team is there, then I'm there. We have to work in harmony, so it's crucial. Next year, it's going to be a bit different. We're going to be looking for slightly different successes in the way of 3 steps. Yes.
And when you think about that, it's almost, I asked you what it was like, you know, you're sat waiting for the race to start and what's going through your mind. But now when you're not in the car, you know, so when you were driving here today, when you're what are you thinking about? What kind of things are you now putting through your mind that are moving you towards that success?
Only the positive stuff.
Right.
All the stuff that's, you know, all the oversteer stuff and the understeer stuff and the gravel stuff and missing an apex. I'm not even thinking about that.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about myself, looking at myself in a really shiny silver trophy. That's what I'm thinking about. And then that helps me think about all the positive stuff to it, because actually, like you say, if you precondition yourself to think one way, you'll probably most likely behave in that manner, in that way, and you'll drive not necessarily to your ability. Yeah. I'm very, you know, confident in my ability, and as a driver, you have to stand by that. But as soon as you get self-doubt, which everybody has, you have to find a way to get around that. Yeah. And my way is I think about trophies.
It's interesting because from when we first met as well, the thing that comes across loud and clear, I think, one is your passion for it. You know, this isn't just something you're having a play at. This is...
it's my life. It's every day. I mean, again, we discussed in the first part of the podcast that, you know, the amount of work that goes into this is just incredible. The stuff that goes on behind the scenes, not just with me, with the team, and, you know, the phone calls you make, the proposals that you're sending out all the time. You know, everything is great. I love it. Yeah. It's not hindrance in any way. I love doing it, but it's a lot of work to get there. Yeah. So the passion has to be there, because if it's not there, it's not going to happen. And really, the race weekend is that just brings it to a head every few weeks. Well, I always use the analogy that it's about 5%. So 95% of it is going out there making it happen. 5% is actually doing it. Yeah. It's a lot goes on behind the scenes. It's like social media, everything. It's great. It's brilliant. Love it. Yeah. How many events this year? 7. You caught me out there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. We'll actually make sure that those dates
Yes.
are in the comment section if
Yes,
people want to
yes, yeah,
go
they'll
along
be
and see you
there
in
for
action
sure.
as well. So that's really, really good. So knowing what you know now, I mean, before we started talking as well, you're already well on the way to doing what you want to do. But knowing what you know now, if we could crack time travel, and you could leave yourself a sealed envelope with a message in it to your younger self.
10 years ago,
Yeah.
I would have said what I said earlier, which is jump.
Right.
Put your hand in your pocket and jump.
Right.
Go out there, get the money however you need to get it, and jump to get into motorsport.
10 years. So let's go 15 years ago. What would you have written to yourself?
Jump.
Jump. So that's very consistent.
Yeah,
It's
it's the same all the way through because I jumped and it happened. That's it.
right.
It's a great story. It's a long story I won't get into now, but the story's great. We have to talk about that another time.
Yeah.
So how it actually came back round, and yeah, it was all very odd. I ended up sitting on the motorway next to one of these race cars, sat on a trailer, and I thought, that's a sign.
Brilliant. Well, no, it was curious. I mean, it's funny how things align, isn't it? Because as you know, we're celebrating 10 years in business this year.
Of course.
And of course, we're again, for those who are on audio won't see this, but behind us we have a car with a number 10 on it.
Yeah.
So how curious is
Confirmed
that?
for this year as well, so we're all good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. Well, look, that's been a blast. Thanks ever so much for taking the time.
No worries.
I hope that what we've done is, if anybody's actually interested in motorsport and is thinking about it, they need to
Yeah.
jump, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone's watching this and wants to get into motorsport, contact me. I'm happy to help.
Great stuff.
I
And
really
all the
am.
details for that will be in
They
the
will be.
in the details.
Or you
of
can
this
contact me
pod.
through any social media channel that you use. I'm on all of them, so
Great stuff.
full-time job.
Bradley, thanks ever so much for
pleasure.
taking the time. I'm actually excited about this
Me
season
too.
too.
Brilliant.
So great stuff.
Thank you, Ian.
That was One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers, and our guest this time in front of the car, Bradley Gravett. Thank you very much. If you want to reach out and get in contact with myself or Bradley on anything we've spoken about, you'll find all the details along with the podcast comments. I hope you'll join us on the next episode. So it's goodbye from the Graves Motorsport headquarters. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you soon.